This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Dunn welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And this birthday boy, March 29th, is a legend in Houston. It is the Tyler Rose, Earl Campbell, who is 66 years old, who played for Houston and New Orleans. He was basically one of the best power running backs in history. He was known for his aggressive, punishing running style and ability to break tackles. He played for Texas, got the Heisman Trophy, was a unanimous All-American, and a lot of accolades. He was drafted first overall by the Houston Oilers in the 1978 NFL Draft and had a big impact in the league and for the city of Houston. He won Rookie of the Year, and he basically was named Offensive Player of the Year in each of his first 3 seasons, which is weird because a rookie usually doesn't win Offensive Player of the Year. He averaged 1,700 yards a season, rushing yards a season. He was the MVP in 1979 after leading the league in rushing yards and touchdowns. With Bum Phillips at the helm in Houston, Campbell's emergence coincided with the Love You Blue era, basically that the Oilers were giving Houston fans something good. Houston had some good offense, but then in '84 he was traded to New Orleans and spent a year and a half before retiring. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame and Pro Football Hall of Fame. His jersey number is retired by the University of Texas and by the Titans, despite the fact that, he didn't play for the Titans. He played for the Houston Oilers. I remember reading a book about Earl Campbell, a biography on him and all that. He was the 6th of 11 siblings from Tyler, Texas, being called the Tyler Rose. His dad died when Earl was 11. Basically, His mom didn't want Earl to get hurt in high school playing football, but he always loved football. Campbell was heavily recruited. It was down to Houston, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Reels, and Baylor. Wow, Arkansas almost had Earl Campbell. Jeez. After visits from the Oklahoma and Texas head coaches, Switzer and Royal, who had a massive rivalry, and the 2 school scores, Campbell chose Texas. He could have went to Oklahoma. No way, I don't think he would have went to Oklahoma. Barry Switzer said that Campbell was the only player he ever saw that could have gone from high school to the NFL and become a star. I doubt that highly. So anyway, Campbell would play for Texas for 4 years, 74, 75, 76, 77. He did very good for himself. He was a fullback, mostly in 75, but he was an icon. Leg injuries would hurt not only him, but the Texas Longhorns in the season. But in 1977, as a senior, he led the nation in rushing with over 1,700 yards. He scored 4 touchdowns to crush Rice, and in the same game, Texas kicker Russell Axelrod got a 67-yard field goal. Campbell, in his final regular season game, would get 222 rushing yards to crush A&M, and they were undefeated. All they had to do was beat the number 5 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish to win the national championship at the Cotton Bowl. And Joe Montana was their star quarterback. But this is not the chicken soup game. That was in 1979. Earl Campbell did pretty good, but Notre Dame crushed Texas 38-10. Earl Campbell couldn't do much. Well, Campbell did pretty well, but Notre Dame's defense was just better. And it created a weird sensation. Texas was ranked number 1, and then they ended up being 4 from the AP poll. I believe Notre Dame ended up winning the title that year. I can't remember. Because I know for darn tooting that Oklahoma had a chance to be the national champion in 1970 for the 77 season when they took on Arkansas. And Arkansas lost 3 star players because of a dorm incident. But Arkansas shocked everyone and themselves by crushing Oklahoma in that year. So I got to take a look because, that was weird and all that. So number 1 and number 2. So yeah, it was huge. The number 1 seed Texas Longhorns, all they had to do was win, and they would be the national champions. They missed. Oklahoma, number 2, got crushed by Arkansas. Alabama beat Ohio State 35-6 in the Sugar Bowl. So basically, they would be in that thing. It was disputed. The 77 national champion was disputed because there were 6 teams with 1 loss: Alabama, Arkansas, Notre Dame, Texas, and Penn State. Well, Kentucky was ineligible. In the end, people were divided. Notre Dame ended up winning the national championship, and it was kind of controversial in a sense, because Alabama, who was the 3 seed, should have won the title. But regardless. So anyway, Campbell was given the Heisman Trophy and won the outstanding player in the Southwest Conference. He had a good year. And the 78 NFL draft happened. Tampa Bay actually would have had the number 1 pick in the 78 draft, but they traded it to Houston for tight end Jimmy Giles and the others first and second round picks in the 78 draft, which was shocking. I mean, Tampa Bay? Really? They wanted Jimmy Giles so badly they traded the number 1 pick. But it did work out for Tampa. Giles was a pretty good tight end. So Houston got the number 1 pick. And they picked Earl Campbell. No surprise there. I mean, Kansas City and New Orleans had the 2nd and 3rd pick. Kansas City took Art Still from Kentucky, defensive end, and New Orleans took wide receiver Wes Chandler from Florida. Good pick. Buffalo took a running back, Terry Miller, who wasn't really that great. All that. Tampa used the 1st round pick from Houston in the deal to take Doug Williams. So basically, Tampa may have ended up, that was a good trade. They got Doug Williams. I think a lot of people were scared of Doug Williams because he's from a Southern school. All that. And Tampa did okay. So yeah, Jeff Diamond. Campbell was the offensive rookie of the year with 1,450 yards, and he led the NFL in that mark. Now, a lot of people would probably say that doesn't seem like a high enough mark, because remember, in 1978, they made some changes to the rule book to help the passing game, because it usually was a rushing game type of thing. Anyway, Houston did pretty good and all that. Earl Campbell would be huge in the 1979-80 season. With Pastorini being hurt, Campbell helped his Oilers shock Dallas 30-24 on Thanksgiving Day in a Thanksgiving Day game in front of the whole nation, when he got 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. He would end up with almost 1,700 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns, both times in both categories, leading the league. He had 11 100-yard rushing games and 7 consecutive 100-yard games, which were NFL records at that time. He was named the MVP for no bad reason and all that. Everyone knew that. That 79 season also was memorable for a performance Earl Campbell did at the Astrodome against the LA Rams, which he bucked over linebacker Isaiah Robertson. And it basically, he has tearaway jerseys and all that, because to try to make defenders miss, he would have tearaway jerseys. They just get the jersey, not the player. But of course, the NFL changed that the next year. So anyway, yeah, the Oilers ended up at 11-5. They would have to go to the wild card game at home against the Denver Broncos, which they beat. They would have to go to San Diego and play the Air Coryell Chargers that had Dan Fouts and a lot of good wide receivers, despite both Pastorini and Campbell missing the game due to injuries. Shockingly, though, thanks to Vernon Perry's 4 interceptions, the Oilers won that game. Both Pastorini and Campbell were back in the starting lineup for the AFC title game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Pittsburgh crushed them Pittsburgh crushed them the first time, but the second conference final between these two teams with the in the Earl Campbell era, it was close. Unfortunately, the game will be most memorable for a Mike Granfield touchdown that should have counted. And Campbell was only given 15 yards rushing on 17 carries. However, he would have 1,900 plus yards in the 1980 season, which was pretty good. He only missed O.J. Simpson's single season mark by 70 yards. He would lead the league in rushing yards and touchdowns again, and had 4 200 plus yard rushing games, a single season record that still stands. He even threw a touchdown pass to Billy White Shoes Johnson. The others would have to face the Oakland Raiders in the wild card game and would lose to the Raiders, which was shocking enough. The worst part about it for the Oilers was that the Raiders ended up using that as a catalyst to win the 1981 Super Bowl. I'm just trying to think here. I know Oakland had to face Cleveland. It was Oakland, Cleveland, Buffalo, Cincy. I think wasn't San Diego number 1 ranked? No, Cincy was number 1 ranked. So if the Oilers had won, they would. No, the Oilers had won. They couldn't face the Bengals because. No, the Browns were number 1, weren't they? The Browns and the Bengals. No, sorry, the Bengals wasn't 81. That was. Who was number 1 in 80-81? I don't remember. Jeez. Bum Phillips was fired after Houston's loss in the wildcard game. So Ed Biles, the defensive coordinator, was given the head coaching job. The others were 7-9, and Campbell did not get the rushing title. All that. The others were terrible in the 82 season that was hit by the strike. They ended up being 1-8. He started getting better production, but the Oilers were 2-14. So basically, Earl Campbell was basically carrying the Oilers as much as he can. He wanted to be traded because he figured Houston was not a good team and all that. Houston started at 0-6 under new head coach Hugh Campbell, who Houston decided to pull from the CFL. No, sorry, Hugh Campbell coached a few years in the USFL and then went to Houston with Warren Moon. Basically, it was kind of a Canadian package deal because Hugh Campbell coached Warren Moon for the Empty Eskimos when they won those 5 straight Grey Cups. Campbell was traded to New Orleans, reuniting him with Bum Phillips. The Saints decided to give up their first-round pick in 1985, which Houston used on Richard Johnson, a cornerback. He spent 8 years with the Oilers, not bad. It was a surprise for New Orleans because they still had George Rogers, who was the number 1 pick in 1981 and that year's Rookie of the Year champion. But the Saints basically wanted to have a good backfield and all that. Campbell basically would have a diminished role because of George Rogers. There were rumors he would be trying to get 10,000 rushing yards, but he retired in the preseason 1986 because, he took a massive punishment, all that, and he wasn't being used a lot. So Earl Campbell did pretty well for himself. One of the best power running backs ever in history. So yeah, he did pretty good for himself. ESPN named him the 7th best college football player of all time in honor of the 150th anniversary of college football. Campbell has 2 sons, Christian and Tyler. Christian would actually play high school football with Drew Brees, which was nice. And Christian ran track for University of Houston. Tyler actually was a running back for San Diego State, but was forced to give up the sport because of his multiple sclerosis, or MS. Campbell would have a lot of physical ailments. At age 46, he could barely close his fist because of arthritis. He had difficulty bending his back and knees. He was diagnosed with spinal stenosis in 2009. He would have to use a wheelchair and all that. And actually, Campbell was addicted to painkillers for spinal stenosis, taking 10 OxyContin pills a day with Budweiser. But he broke his addiction the same year, 2009, and basically says substance abuse is not cool. What a guy! I mean, to admit he's taking painkillers and basically end his addiction in the same year. That's a great running back. I don't care what you say. Earl Campbell basically revolutionized running back positions in the 70s and 80s. And don't you forget that. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.